All right, you guys, we're ready, right? Day 3 of the Be Mine workshop series. We've been talking this week about how to be the one, right? I've got my candy conversation hearts, right? And all these little phrases I'm thinking about that, say be the one or be mine or yes or things like that. How do we actually do this in our business? And do it in a way that doesn't feel like we're just posting and praying or we're waiting and baiting, trying to convince people, or we're like trying to literally push or pull them across the finish line. Anyone ever feel like that sometimes? And I want you to know, like, we've only just begun to get started on these 3 steps. Okay. I'm walking you this week through a very simple 3-step process. Be seen, be known, be the one. You can't skip to be the one if you're not doing be seen and be known. Okay. So we have to do all 3 of those to move from those sweet first impressions to you're the one conversions, right? Like that's what we want because then we get to serve. Remember, we've been talking all week. There really are only 2 activities you should be doing in your business. You should know these right now like the back of your hand, okay? So what are they? Drop them in the chat. What are the 2 things that everything you do should be focused on either one or the other? They start with S. They're both S's. Sales and service. Yes, yes, and yes. And guess what? Even though you love probably the service part, you can't do that part if you don't have the sales, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting really good at this part of it and do it in a way that feels really good for them too, okay? But I also want you to know that the good news is even though this is day 3 of our workshop series and will be our final day together on this topic together in this format, this doesn't have to be the end. Because CEOs who want to focus on making these sales more often their new norm, so they always have plenty of people to serve, are jumping into CEO focus, right? And when you do, not only are we going to help you say, okay, what is my one thing focus? So I'm not chasing 20 squirrels, right? What is like the actual place I want to be 12 weeks from now? And how do I growth map my way there? And then what accountability do I need to build in? So not only are we going to walk you through the growth mapping method, you also will get to be a part of the live Be Mine implementation session that we're doing next week as a way to take what we've learned this week and actually start doing something. I do not want this to be a workshop series where you took great notes, you nodded your head, you said, yep, I should do that. And then you just get sucked back right up into the busyness of life and business and don't really do anything. Okay, so I'm all about implementation, not just information. Nobody needs more information. Maybe there hopefully are some good nuggets this week that you're pulling out of here, but we want to focus on the implementation piece of things, not just that. Okay. And today's day 3, step 3, be the one. How do we actually move the conversation to conversion? Right. Yesterday we talked about like not ignoring the be known phase, not oversharing, but also not getting stuck in the friend zone. Okay. So as we're getting started, has someone said I love you today? I just want to ask, and in case you didn't hear it yet today, or you need to hear it again, I love you, but I know you'd rather hear it from your best fit buyers, right? I mean, let's be honest, okay? It's nice when people say they love you, right? But it's one thing to say I love you, and it's another thing to say like I love you and I want to work with you, consume your product, consume whatever this thing is, right? And so that's what we're going to be working towards. So whether you have a product, a program, a service, or even a ministry, I have several women who are in my CEO programs that are not doing things for profit, but they are doing things where there's value being given and exchanged, and they're bringing people in some kind of a ministry role. And I want you to know that you are in the right place if that is what you are doing as well. So, all right, what we are going to do is do a quick recap on day 2. Because again, I think this is the phase that everybody skips. We know we have to do visibility, right? And then we want to hear be the one, but we don't always do the be known. So if you have not listened to day 2 yet, we do have a private podcast audio feed. If one of my interns can drop the link for that, that would be amazing. That way you can listen and re-listen as much as you want to that on there. But here's what we quick talked about yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about why your leads aren't converting, right? Why you're not going straight from be seen to be the one. Because either you're jumping on them too fast, over-explaining or overwhelming, or the other side of the pendulum, you're afraid of being pushy, so you freeze or just assume they're going to tell you when they need you. Or you get stuck in the friend zone, right? You're not really sure how to have the conversation, okay? All of those are lost time, right? Lost opportunities. And chances are they're going to go chase the next shiny object that comes in their inbox or in their newsfeed. Right? That is busyness owner activity, not CEO action, Christ empowered operator action. So we're leaning into that. So once we kind of go, okay, I have to have this in between time, we started talking about they need experiences to get to know us. just like in dating, right? And through those experiences, we can have conversations, right? They're getting to know us. We're getting to know them. We're finding out where do we align? Where don't we align, right? What is it that we're all about? And how can we move together towards this transformation that they want? How do we do that? Well, we do that through qualifying questions and be known touch points. And I want to invite you. Yesterday, I put a post in the community and I said, if I just opted in for your whatever it is, what would be the message that you would send me? And I'm shout out to those of you who did do that. I'm going to encourage everyone who's listening to the sound of my voice. If you are not already a member of the Redeem Her Time community, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's free and you get to promote your business any day of the week. So go to redeemhertime.com/community. Go find the post where I said day 2, it looks like a green question box. I said, if I just opted in for your fill in the blank, what would be the message that you would send me? Because what we're doing is we're going through those messages and saying, how can we refine these to be even clearer, conciser, and more compelling? To actually, number one, remind people of who we are and what they just got from us, because guaranteed, they already forgot you. You thought you made a great first impression and you probably did, and then life happened, right? So we want to know who you are, what are you connected to, right? But then we want to ask a really simple question that is going to identify where they are in the process, what they need or want, and maybe even some level of readiness, although that really might come a little bit later. But we also want to start getting some kind of back and forth conversation going, right? And even when you have a lot of people coming in on a regular basis, you will stand out if you take the time to do this very quick step in the beginning, right? While it's fresh, while people still maybe remember who you are and what they just downloaded or what they just opted in for or whatever. And guess what? The way that I teach this inside my programs with the Hello to Let's Go system, it is so simple that you could have team members doing it on your behalf as well. Right? Because we all want to get to the place where eventually we aren't the only person that is the one who's, interacting with everyone, because somebody else could ask that qualifying question. Well, you're out here actually doing the work of building the brand and bringing people in and stuff like that. Okay. So I'm encouraging you to go into the community. Let me know what would be that message you would send me, and let's refine it. Right. And then let's test it and see if you get some more responses from that. Because sometimes you can have a really great question, but people are just really busy. So sometimes it's not you, but we always focus on what's me first. Okay. All right. Before we get into day 3, I want to hear about some day 2 ahas or wins, because yesterday I challenged you to not only think about your qualifying question, but to think about some be known touch points and maybe what might be a progression. So that way you're never stuck in the, I don't know what to say or next. Right. And then your homework was to identify 3 people who have somehow raised their hand, come into your world, that you could ask a question or offer a touch point to. So you may have done that and not heard back from them. That's okay. The win is that you did it. You may have refined your question. Maybe that was your win. Maybe it was something that we talked about yesterday, but I would love if there's like 1 or 2 people who are on live that want to unmute real quick and just share like what was an aha or a win in the last 24 hours. So either something we talked about yesterday or something that you did in response to that. And if you are not able to unmute, you can always do. Yeah, go ahead.
I would love to go, because yesterday I was only able to be online for a little while, and then I've watched the replay most of the way through. I've got about 15 minutes left. But the way you described and you made it so clear with the dating example about, are you the clingy person? Are you this? And it was so funny because I got another email in my inbox from another provider, and it was talking about the same thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the clingy person that is like throwing them all the things and like, oh my gosh, let me share everything. And oh, it's gonna be wonderful. And they go, okay, that's a lot of energy coming at me right now. And so seeing that made it so much clearer. And so then this morning, I got a message from somebody I had reached out to that said, okay, I'm interested in your service. Can you tell me more? And I was like, breathe, just breathe. Okay. And I'm coming off of a week where I've had a lot of sales calls, a lot of yeses. And so it makes that energy even, like I get even more excited, which is
Right.
really bad for the sales. And so I was like, wait, breathe. I have 3 pieces of the publishing system. These are the 3 pieces. And then I just stopped. New paragraph. What phase are you in right now? And just left it. And I haven't heard back, but I felt so good about that response. It gave them information, made sure that I was answering their question without some vague, well, I'm not going to tell you anything until you tell me more, or like I'm going to
Right.
have to
Yeah.
qualify you before I even tell you more. But also didn't share my whole life story
Yeah.
with the brand new first date.
Yeah. Right. And every option that they have. And then you can do this. Then we can do this. Da, 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 da. And they were like, yeah, I love that. So you really asked a qualifying question. Like you started, to share something, so they knew enough, and then you asked a qualifying question because based on their answer will help you if they've already written the book. So Carolyn is a book coach, right? So if they've already written the book, you're probably not going to then waste your time talking about that phase of your
Exactly.
program. Like, okay, now you need the launch phase, or now you need, the publishing phase, or
Exactly.
whatever they are. So yeah, I love that, and I love the fact that you felt really good about slowing it down and not, word vomiting everything that you
Exactly.
could on them. Yeah,
And
it was
notice
good.
the three phases coming from a CEO conversation that Lissa and I had outlining exactly what those three phases were. So I knew exactly what the phases were, and that confidence in what I was offering helped me not share too much as well.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. Like you could talk about the title of the program for each phase. You could talk about all the benefit, all the features of each phase, but that's not going to mean a hill of beans to them until they tell you which phase they're in and what their challenge or struggle or desire is even inside that phase. So that was a really wise CEO decision. I love it. I love it. Carol says in the chat, I reached out to 5 people in my circle and one replied with an intro to their HR well-being manager. Yay. That's amazing, Carol. Good for you. Right? We're doing our part. We can't always control the reach outs, but we can be the one who initiates and do that. Great. Good, good. All right. Well, let's jump in. If there's anything else that anyone wants to share win wise, just drop that in the chat as we're going, because today is about day 3 and step 3. Be the one, right? But there's a thing about this. We have to discern the conversations that are going to lead to a yes, right? We talked about this the other day. Probably a guy who goes and spends thousands of dollars on a diamond ring is not guessing at what she's going to say. I mean, there may be some of those out there who, are willing to take that risk, but probably not, right? So how do we learn to read the signals and identify the right fit and confidently know that it's time to pop the question? And it feels like this is moving towards the yes. Do we have a guarantee? No, right? But there are things, right? The relationship gets to a certain point where we need to define the relationship, right? So before we start putting ourselves out there, right, and wonder, are they going to say I'm the one? Like, let's go to the one who already says you're the one and already loves you just the way you are and ask him to bless us today. So, Lord, we just come before you. God, I thank you that you've chosen us before the world even began, before our life even began, before we even got on the map and started doing anything of any value or lack of value. And I thank you that that you chose us to be in this time, in this place, and doing the things that you have called us to. And so, Lord, I pray that as we step into this piece of it, a place where we often feel a lot of resistance because there is some seemingly risky things that we're about to step into, that you will give us faith, that you'll give us boldness, courage, confidence, certainty, that we are just being faithful stewards of what you've entrusted to us. And we lift and entrust the results into your hands. And so we ask these things in your name. Amen. Amen. All right, let's go to the word first before we get to work. Okay. So today we're going into Philippians, Philippians 1, verses 9 through 10. I really liked the NIV, and you'll understand in a minute why. I usually read ESV, but I was looking at the different versions. I really like it in the NIV. It says this, and this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you might be able to discern what is best. Do you hear some words that we've been talking about this week? Love, knowing, discernment, best, all in one verse. I was like, really, Laura, you couldn't even made this any better, right? And again, we're not going to make this verse mean something it doesn't, right? But the whole idea is God just doesn't just call us to love blindly, right? Blind love, we've all heard of that, right? He calls us to love with wisdom, with insight, with discernment, right? And this is Paul's prayer, that our love would keep growing, right? Not just in feeling, but in knowledge, in depth of understanding, so that what? We can recognize what is best in every situation. In fact, that is the next verse after the redeem her time verses in Ephesians 5, so that you can, discern what is the will of God, right? So that we are making wise choices with our time, with our, decisions in business, with our relationships, right? And here's where we talked about yesterday, walking with the Lord is a lifelong process. And what happens over time, I just had this conversation with somebody I recorded an episode this morning. We were talking about how marriage, motherhood, business, it's all a sanctifying journey, right? Like it's all what's growing us to look more like Christ, right? And the more we spend time with him and our love deepens, our knowledge of him deepens, our discernment about making decisions in alignment with that deepens, right? He is shaping our hearts, right? And we are growing all along the way. And that discerning what is best gets easier. It gets easier over time. So if you're like, I wish it was easier to figure out what's God's will or what's the best thing for me or whatever, like it gets easier when we lean into this process of walking with him, right? And this isn't just about making the right choices in theory. It's about like living it out with intentionality. And this is about how we relate to the Lord, how we engage with others, and how we steward our business. So discernment, right, is being able to make a decision with the current knowledge that I have, right, and the desires that God has put on my heart. Right. And that is what is going to move us and our business forward as we do that. We've got to have the love, the knowledge, the discernment. They all come and they work together. Right. And the more we pursue him, yesterday's verse, press on to know the Lord. Right. It's not just, okay, check the box, know him, next. Right. Like it's a pressing on that we do that. Right. And this is really the rhythm of be mine. Right. We're choosing to be present. We're choosing to be intentional. We're choosing to be known. And then we're choosing to have a conversation about getting to serve someone. So I know you guys have had fun following along with my cousin Lindsay's journey. So let's pick back up with Lindsay for a minute. So in case you were just joining us, you're like, who's Lindsay? This is my cousin. She just re-entered the dating world literally like 2.5 weeks ago. So this is all super fresh. She is very busy working on her doctorate. She has a startup business. She's patented a product. She was a nurse and found that a lot of times the tubes don't stay in where they're supposed to be when you go to move a patient. She almost had a patient die, so she developed this apparatus, and now she's going all over the country selling this to hospitals and working with Mayo Clinic and stuff like that. So anyway, she doesn't have time to go waste sitting around loitering places hoping that she runs into some guy. She also doesn't have time to be swiping on dating apps and stuff like that. So she hired a matchmaker. Very smart, because who has time to just date these days, right? But not only did she marry a matchmaker, and she didn't go okay, this is all on you, let me know what you find. Together, they mapped out her dating strategy to reflect who she is, right? And who she's looking for. Then they made sure all of that was really clear when they set up her dating app profiles. And now she's got this matchmaker who is actually able to filter people and options through, and then she gets an email every day saying, here are the options that have come up today, which ones do you want to take it further on, right? So in this process, she's been getting responses. She's started messaging with a few different guys. She's gone on to video calls with a couple of them. She went on an actual date, right? And here's the best part. The date was a win, even though she said to me, I don't think he's my person, at least not right now, right? What did she do? She got out there. She got brave. She was a woman of conviction of who she was and what she was looking for. She had fun. She enjoyed herself, right? And in the process, she's discovering a lot about herself and about who she really wants to share life with, right? And what she's not going to compromise on. And she's learning the importance of discernment, right? And paying attention to red flags. There have been some guys, she's like, this is a red flag. I don't think that this is somebody I would want to pursue a relationship with, right? And so there's clarity that comes out of being in process, right? And actually showing up instead of just imagining or dreaming about what could happen. And she even said yes to a second date with that one guy just to see. She's like, I'll give him one more chance. Let's see. So this is exactly how the be known phase works with your leads. That's what we talked about yesterday, right? It's not about saying yes to the first interested person, right? Hello, proof of life. And now, we're creating these experiences, right? To ever deepen our knowledge of one another to see if this is a fit. Okay. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. And sometimes the answer is not now, right? And that's okay. They're all okay, right? I would rather hear a no or a not now than nothing. Who would rather hear a no or a not now than nothing, right? Can we just identify where we are? That will really help me to understand where we're going from here. So here's where step 3, be the one, comes in. The goal is to guide your leads so thoughtfully, so personally, so intentionally, this doesn't feel copy paste, that when it's time to ask for the commitment, the pop the question moment, they're ready and you're ready, right? And they already recognize you as the obvious choice. And they've already showed you and told you, here's what I want. Here's what I need, right? I am able to afford the investment, time, money, whatever it is, bandwidth, and I'm ready to do that, right? That's what we're trying to get to, is that readiness place today. Because somehow in our interactions, we've helped them see where they are in the process and how we can actually take them to something else. And hopefully before you ask, they and you already know they're going to say yes. How many of you would prefer to get on a call already knowing like this is going to a yes? We're just going to talk through a few little logistics or maybe a quick question that somebody has. Like it's more of a consultation than a sales call. Does anybody love sales calls? Does anybody like, oh my gosh, I love sales calls. That is the favorite part of what I do. Like I do not love sales calls. I would much rather it be just a 15-minute, let's just have a conversation and make sure this is a fit and help walk you through the next steps and what your first milestone is going to be, than me try to go from start to finish, right? Because I want you to experience that all ahead. I don't like anything about sales. Okay, yes you do, because after sales, Danielle, you get to serve them. So yes you do, but it's doing them in the right way, okay? So we want to be showing up. We want to be like getting good at talking clear, concise, compelling. Remember our 3 C's yesterday? I'm going to add a 4th C today, because that's how somebody's going to clearly know, right? And how we're going to be able to discern if this conversation is moving to a be the one phase, right? Or if it needs a little bit more be known phase, or if it's just one of those we're going to bless and release. Okay? But here's where things sometimes get uncomfortable for a lot of women in business. We take time to build visibility. Right? We take time to nurture. We take time to reach out and have conversations. Maybe they don't reply, but hopefully we do get people replying, right? And we get people engaging, and now they're starting to open up. And then we're like, okay, do I ask the question like, it's not really like, do you like me or are we friends, right? Because that's not going to serve us, but really, are we doing this? And as soon as we think about that, what happens? Like everything inside like tightens up, right? Like it kind of feels comfortable to just be comfortable. And then you're like, oh my goodness, the fact that I actually have to like ask this person if they're ready to start, like maybe makes me feel a little angst. If that's you, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, let's say a 1 would be like, I am, as tight as a clam. Like I'm not even going to open my mouth. If I feel a little bit of like, I don't know if I want to ask this question, to a 10 being like, I have no problem. I have no problem asking somebody, hey, like, are you ready for us to start doing this? And I'm going to teach you how to do that today. Okay. But I want to hear where you are coming in. 1, I'm tight as a clam. Not even going there. I'll wait for them to come to me. 10. Yeah. I'll have that conversation all day long. Right? Where are you at? 2s, 3. Okay. So we're on the lower end. Okay. An 8. Okay. 6 to 7. Okay. And again, you don't have to be a 10, right? But where are you and how can we move just a little bit more to the right or the left, or whichever way you're looking at my hands. Okay. All right. In dating, right, this is the part that Lindsay's coming to, like if she's seen somebody for a while and feeling like, okay, there's some chemistry, there's some connection. I've shared some stories. I've heard some stories from him. Maybe we've even talked about our dreams for the future in subtle ways, but nobody's defined the relationship yet. Like here is where she at some point is going to have to make a decision. I can't keep dating all these people on this app if I actually want to pursue a relationship with this one, right? So then we start questioning, should I bring it up? Is it too soon? What if I scare them off? What if they say no? What if they were not even thinking this at all, right? Like how many of us feel that in business, just like maybe we did, if and when we were on the dating scene, right? We have conversations. We get to know people, they're saying, thank you for your content. This is so helpful. And then it gets in our head. Does she really want to work together? Should I say something? What if she thinks I'm just trying to sell her? What if I misread the signals? What if I wait, right? And she goes and hires somebody else. So I want you to drop in the chat. What is the question or a question that comes up in your head that's battling back in there before you actually do the thing and ask the question? What is the like that kind of maybe that like, that moment of, I don't know. What is that's coming up in your head? I would love to kind of see what things you're working through. I don't want to be pushy. Okay. Guess what? If you don't want to be pushy, Danielle, I guarantee you're not going to be pushy. It's the people who aren't willing to stop and ask the question that are probably the ones who are being pushy. So just the fact that you're asking that is already you being sensitive to that and thinking about that, right? Somebody else, what question are you asking in your head? I'm usually thinking she will say yes, so I run ahead and don't calm the buying fears. Okay. So yeah, sometimes we get too far ahead of ourselves, and sometimes we have to go, okay, what do we need right now? What does she need the most? How do I word that I have the solution? Okay, I love that. I'm going to give you some very specific verbiage today, Lanisha. And here's the thing. If you do what we talked about on day 2, you will already know what she needs the most. You should not be going into this conversation wondering, what does she need most? If you are, it's probably too soon for that conversation. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Who wants to be like, I want to know exactly what to say and how to say it, but not make it sound like I'm being scripty. Okay. I'm going to give you guys that in just a minute. Okay. Here's the thing. We are not going to keep circling. Okay. Pinky promised me I'm done circling and going in circles forever and ever, amen, and just hoping that someday somebody's going to do the thing to get us off of the circle, right? And I'm just going to keep nurturing and keep explaining and keep sending value and keep hoping she'll magically wake up one day and say, here's my money, right? You're going to wake up to, it in your inbox, right? Or swinging the other direction where we say too much, okay? Or proposing like this. What if somebody proposed to you like this? So, if you ever maybe wanted to, we could, think about possibly being exclusive. Like, hello, that's not popping the question. You're apologizing for it. And how often do we do that in business? Right? But the question is why? Why do we tend to waffle when it gets to this? Is it maybe a fear of rejection? Is it a fear of saying too much or not enough or the wrong thing? Is it maybe we making an assumption about something that isn't there, right? But here's the thing. We also don't want to stay in limbo, because limbo is no fun, right? That's just costing more time and money for both of us, right? When things aren't defined, we're undefined, right? And then undefined relationships are only going to drain time, and they're going to drain our ROTI, our return on time invested, because we're investing time, energy, emotional bandwidth, but without clarity, there's no direction. It's not going anywhere. Right? It's like putting gas in your car and just going in circles. Okay, you can if you really want to, but it's not really going to help us, right? And then what happens is they drift away, right? And then the person who is willing to ask, they say yes to, and then, right? And then we were like, oh man, just when I was about to ask, right? So it's like, how do we find this balance between taking the initiative, because I think that's our role as business owners. We don't wait on them, right? But also being mindful of where they are and when is the right time. Okay. So that is what today is all about. We're not going to be clingy, right? We're going to be clear. We're not going to be pushy, but we're going to be direct, and we're not going to be dramatic, right? But we're also not going to be, wallflowers either, like we talked about the other day. Okay. And this is also why CEO focus is going to be key to not get distracted by your doubts and fears. Okay. Yes, we have shiny objects and squirrels that come in our inbox and our news feeds, right? But if we are actually honest, I think the thing that distracts us the most are the doubts and the fears. Would you agree? Is it the doubts and the fears more that keeps you from doing something, or is it more the shiny objects? I mean, it's probably a little bit of both, but I think it's the doubts and the fears. And that is why we need to address the head and the heart, right? And everything that I teach, especially inside CEO Focus, and if one of my interns could drop the link for that, we are getting, number one, we're getting into our hearts the first thing every week. What does the scripture say? What is God challenging me to do and think and believe? And how is that going to influence the way that I invest my time? And so there's that piece of it, right? The heart set, the mindset, but there's also the skill set. Like if you do actually want to grow a business, you have to have a focus and know where you're going. That's the one thing focus in the growth mapping method. You have to have a map of actually how am I getting from where I am to where I want to be? And you have to have either blinders on or, think about bowling, right? Where you've got the bumpers that kind of keep you in the lane, right? Or, somebody to grab you back, right? That's what the weekly accountability piece is about, right? And so when you are following a simple system with support, you will see the growth. You will see the progress. You will see the ROTI on your time, because your time is actually being invested in a way that's moving the needle. Right. And so, yes, Donita dropped in there as well. If you join us by next Tuesday, we are, like I said, doing that live implementation session together. Maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking of a business bestie. I had somebody yesterday tell me, she's like, oh my goodness, I just told my friend about this group and this program because this has been so amazing for me and she needs to be in here. So yes, you can send it to somebody who's not even here and be like, hey, let's do this together. I want to be more focused and really see things moving forward and really see the growth. Okay. Scale of 1 to 10. How good would it feel to have higher conversion rates when you actually do have these conversations? 1 being I could take it or leave it. 10 being oh my word. If I could have more people saying yes than not, right? That would be amazing. Who doesn't want that in business? So if you're putting a 10 and you're not in CEO focus, go click on that link right now, redeemhertime.com/focus, and see what we're all about. And if you have questions, you and I can have a conversation. Okay. All right. So let's jump into the shift, right? We're shifting into the be the one phase. We're not going to sit here and you beat our heads against the wall and not say things, because commitment doesn't happen by chance, right? How does commitment happen? There's clarity, and there's got to be some step of courage, right? In dating, you can have the chemistry and you can have connection and you can talk every day, but nothing changes until somebody defines the relationship. At some point, someone has to say, are we doing this? Right? Business is no different. Your leads may love you. They may trust you. They may engage with everything that you send them. But until you invite them to a decision, you're both kind of floating out here, right? And that's just going to drain our momentum. Okay? So here is what most people miss. Interest is not the same as intention. Interest is not the same as intention. Where you will have a lot of people who are interested, but not everybody is actually at the place of I am ready and willing to be intentional and to invest, right? And so we have to be able to gauge that in a way that doesn't feel weird, right? But the thing of it is, right, that we talked about this the other day, no one's going to experience the transformation that you can help them with your product or your service or your community or whatever it is, until they are actually inside. So you are not pushing someone by asking the question. You're actually opening a door and asking if they want to walk through it. Would that feel less pushy than I'm trying to like force you through a doorway? Be like, hey, I'm opening this door. Would you like to come inside? Right? And I think of like how a gentleman would open the door and just kind of like, not push you through the door, but he's going to kind of like guide you through and be right there, right behind you, right? And move with you. That is why this phase of Be the One is really about learning how to guide conversations confidently and compassionately, so that your leads can say yes or maybe no or not yet, right? And they don't feel confused and they don't feel pressured and they don't feel compromised. Okay? Because if you've done the work to be seen and then the work to be known, now we want to give them the clarity they need to respond, but we are the ones who have to ask the question. So when it's time to have a DTR, define the relationship conversation, right? It can be very tempting to not say anything because we're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So let me give you the top 5 wrong things you could say if you were going to ask the question. Okay, so this is what not to do, right? See if you can hear yourself in any of these miss the mark conversation starters. Okay, number 1 is that you are the overqualifier explainer, right? You start the invitation with a ton of qualifiers. I mean, if you want, we could maybe schedule a call, or only if this is helpful for you. And right, you're trying to be polite but not pushy, but instead you like shrink the offer. And they're not feeling confident about saying yes, and if you can help them. And so the next step is really fuzzy, right? It's like somebody asking somebody out, but apologizing for even asking. You're like, then why did you, why are you asking? Okay, so we don't want to be an overqualifier, right? And to give all these explanations. The second one is the desperate for a yes push, right? How many of us have done this? We pile on the reasons why they should say yes. I promise you'll get results. I promise we'll make it super easy for you. I'll throw in this extra bonus if you're worried about this, right? And we're like all over the top, thinking she just needs more. And if she gets more, then she's going to be in, right? But instead of inviting clarity, we over-explain. And again, now they've sensed some hesitation or doubt, or it feels like too much. And now they're like, I don't even know if I could do this. And so then it makes her hesitate, right? This would be like if you were dating, someone proposed with a PowerPoint of reasons why they should marry you. Like you'd be like, overkill, overwhelming, unless obviously that was them and it was really touching and you could tell that it was personal, and yeah, it could be super sweet, but yeah, we do not want to do the desperate for a yes push. Okay. Number 3, the tentative invite, like where you hint or suggest or imply, but you never really pop the question. Like maybe we could work together sometime, or like, I'm not sure if now's the right time, but we're like leaving everyone guessing. Like, do we really want to work with them or not? Right? It would be like, yeah, someone asking us, on a date, and then like the bill is sitting there and it's like, who's going to grab the bill? Right? Like it feels very awkward. And where is this going? All right. Number 4 is the friend zone offer, right? We talked yesterday about the friend zone. We're like, hey, happy to brainstorm ideas anytime. I'm here if you need me, let me know, right? Like, again, you're showing up and helping, but we're not actually like asking for the yes, where they're now coming into a place where we can fully serve them. It's like going on a whole bunch of coffee dates for months without ever like saying, okay, like let's actually define this as dating, right? And the 5th one is the let's wait it out line, right? Where you're like, no rush, just let me know when you're ready. Maybe she will, maybe she won't, right? But you never know unless you ask. And what I like to say is like in this one, like if and we'll talk about this in a minute, if somebody's response is, I would love to, but we're going to talk about how do you respond to that. I'm going to give you very specific language today. So I'm so glad that you're here. It may be that it's a timing issue. It may be like I just talked to somebody this morning. She's like, yes, Lissa, I would love to do this, but I'm about to go on this big trip. So I would be able to do it after I get back. Great, right? So then guess what my next question was to her? When do you get back from your trip? Because it doesn't make any sense for me to try to push something now or just hope she remembers to reach out to me. And guess what? I am making a note of when she is going to be back. And it is already in my Hello Let's Go system, so that way I can follow up with her and we can revisit this and make it happen, right? Okay, so here's the thing. Being the one isn't about convincing someone to commit. We've created that space in the be known, right? But now we want to take it to the place of like, we're asking a question, right? And we want to be, remember our 3 C's, clear, concise, compelling. I'm going to add one more for this phase, confident. Clear, concise, compelling, and confident. We want to be clear enough to understand. Okay, she's actually asking me something. Like, somebody's asking you a question, but they kind of do all these other things to ask you the question. And then you're kind of like, wait, did you just ask a question? Was I supposed to respond? We want to be concise enough to respect both their time and our time, right? And not confuse them in the way. Compelling enough to invite the yes, right? But also confident enough that we both know, like, yeah, this is a really good decision, right? And so this is what we want to be focusing on as CEOs. And this is why we don't need to chase or convince or settle for maybes. Like, we are showing up as stewards. And here's what I believe. If you feel like right now, like, I don't like sales, Lissa, okay, then I want you to go, okay, do I truly believe that God has given me this business and this specific way of serving people? If the answer is yes, then how can I see sales as service, but also as stewardship? Right? Like, this is how I'm starting to invest the things that he has given me so that I can actually do the thing that he's called me to actually produce some results, right? To build the kingdom and to hear, well done, good and faithful servant, right? Like, if we approach this as stewardship, are you even stewarding this relationship well if we just kind of let it keep hanging out in no man's land? That doesn't really serve anybody, including the Lord, right? So I think when we come at this whole conversation from a place of stewardship, it starts shifting our resistance, right? And also I think it's going to help that person not feel like we're desperate, right? Or we're trying to force something, because it's coming from a place that feels deeply personal, right? We're listening to what we've taken the time to ask questions and listen, right? And it's just going back and forth. Okay, so are you guys ready for some verbiage of how to do this? Who wants to know? What do I say? Right? I will give you some verbiage, but here's the thing again, right? You're the one who's going to be in the conversation, so you make this say what it needs to. So you're going to be on the second page of day 3. And we're going to be talking about, we don't want to be kind of going like, is anybody noticing, right? Does anybody need? We're already past those places. That's what be seen was. That's what be known was. Now the question becomes, is this a mutual yes? Is this a mutual yes? Or is this just a nice conversation relationship? And those are okay too, right? Like, not everybody is going to be a mutual yes, and that's okay. And I think that's something we need to, number one, expect and embrace as CEOs. I don't have to force everything to a yes or I'm a failure. Okay. But what we want to look at is, if we're not finding many mutual yeses in phase 3, I want you to go back to phase 1. Who am I being seen by? Am I really being seen by my best fit buyers? Or am I just being seen by anybody who has a pulse, right? And no wonder they're not mutual yeses, right? Or go back to that be known. Maybe you are bringing in best fit buyers, but maybe in that being known part, you're either, ghosting. I had this conversation with the CEO. She's like, I'm not ghosting, but I'm like, but if we assume that they're just getting the automation stuff, that is also a form of ghosting. Right? As opposed to like, you've raised your hand, you've taken a step into my world. Now I'm coming towards you and I'm initiating that and keeping it going. Right? And so do I have those touch points and stuff in here? But then we have to have this discerning conversation. So what is a discerning conversation? Here's our definition today. A discerning conversation is simply this: a question that defines the relationship around the what and the when of working together. A question that defines the relationship around the what and the when of working together. Okay, we're seeking clarity, right? We're trying to figure out that readiness piece of things. Remember, our best fit client needs, wants, can afford, and is ready to invest. Okay, that's kind of where we're at, are those last 2. They maybe somewhere in our known part, they heard the what's the investment of time, money, or whatever. So if not, we want to clarify that in this step. But for sure, the ready, right? This is how we're like, okay, are we both ready to move forward in this, right? And not make it weird, Okay. And again, clarity is kindness, right? And asking the question is going to be helpful, right? I think most people would appreciate us asking so that then we're not pushing something that they don't even want or they're not ready for, or they already know I have to finish this before I can even think about the next thing. So can we revisit this at this time? Okay. I think this is true. Tell me if you agree. Most women don't struggle as much to start conversations. We struggle to close the loop. Would you agree? I mean, there are some people who are like, you're like, well, and I guess even if you would consider yourself an introvert, they're probably both hard, right? But it probably is easier to just start the conversation because that kind, I'm not asking anything of them. So it's just, me smiling and saying hi and giving them something, right? But this closing the loop part, like, that's the part where it gets hard, okay? So how do we make a be the one invitation, okay? How do we create this space for a mutual yes so we can define where this is going, okay? Remember, when you're looking for a mutual yes, you've gone from love, being seen, right? We both, that, okay, there's something that attracted me, right? So that level of love, to understanding, right? The knowing part, to decision, right? Which is the conversion part. Okay. So we've gone from love and that love now helps build the understanding, which helps leads to the decision. So very simple 3-part thing that you can do starting today. You ready for this? Okay. We're gonna make it so simple. And this is how to do this. Okay. Step 1, you want to mirror their words. This is using the love and the knowledge piece. So before you ever make an offer or an invitation, I want you to think back on what they've already told you. Okay? Now, this is going to go, Lanisha, to what your question earlier of saying, I don't know for sure what they need right now. Because I think the first thing you should be saying is, hey, so say Lanisha and I were talking. Okay, so hey, Lanisha, you shared you're struggling with how to juggle all these different roles and responsibilities you play. Okay, running the house. That's fine if you're running your house. She's got a lot of things on her plate, you guys. She and I have been having conversations, okay? And you told me that what you really want is to feel like you can actually like be present to what you're doing without always thinking about what's the next hat I have to put on, right? If you can't clearly say what this person is looking for, either their pain point or their desired outcome or both, it may not be time to make an offer yet or to make an invitation. So guess what then, Lanisha? We never run into the problem of I don't know what they need. I would say if I don't know what somebody needs, then what can I do to, find out what they need? So I need to maybe go back to the be known part. Okay. But all you've done right now, you haven't, first of all, is that awkward? Hey, I'm just thinking back on our conversation. You shared with me this and that you really want this. Are we okay so far? That's not awkward, right? That's just loving. That's listening, mirroring back, right? Very good communication strategy. Okay. Step number 2 is where we're going to actually name the offer, right? Because again, we don't want to keep it this vague, like I maybe have something that could maybe help you with this, but we want to keep it short, clear, concise, compelling, right? No over explaining. So it might look something like this, like CEO Focus is a accountability program designed to help you figure out how to get, complete this project so that you can see this part of your business grow, right? Or whatever it is. Again, I'm putting in what they told me, and I'm connecting it to what it is that I'm about to invite them to. Again, that was one sentence. And then step 3, because again, we can't just stop there and be like, okay, what do we do with that, right? Step 3 is very simple. And this is like, I love this way of doing it. And maybe you want to tweak this to make it fit like how you wanted to say it. But does it make sense to get started working together in this way? Do you notice how this is an invitation? It's not a pitch. It's not, do you want to buy this? Does it make sense to like start doing this? Like, is that feel a little bit easier to say than buy my thing? And again, you may have a little bit different way that you say it, but like, we're just asking a very simple question, invitation. Does it make sense? Right? So very clear, short, right? What did they already tell you? How does what you have connect and help them with what they told you? And does it make sense to start doing this thing together? Super, super simple. Okay, before we go on and how to respond, I want to hear from you guys. Okay, if when you're thinking about that process, talk back to me. So whether you unmute or you drop it in the chat, how does that feel? You may be like, Lissa, that still feels super scary. Okay, just like say it. Or you may be like, wow, I never really realized it could be that simple and I could do it like that. Thank you, Catherine, for typing it out for us. Does that feel easier than maybe what you thought it needed to sound like? It made it very simple. Good. It feels like a natural conversation. Yes, we want this to feel natural, right? Seems kind of simple. Simple, but a little scary. Okay, so I would lean into that. What feels scary? Like where in here do I feel scary, right? And how can I work on my belief around that? Like if they took the time to share a pain point or a desire, right? And I'm saying, I'm valuing what you've told me. That's a really healthy thing, right? And I value what you told me so much that this thing that I have actually can help you with this. And I'm just wondering, like, hey, are you seeing this connection here too? And like, does this make sense to start doing this? And it takes time and practice and things like that. Yeah, it makes the conversation easier as it naturally flows from the stage of relationship. Yes, keep in mind, this is not a first date question. Okay? Remember, you already have to have done, there's a reason they came into your world. These are not cold people on the internet that you don't know who they are, what they need, what they're doing. Carolyn is not going to be asking this question to somebody right now who she doesn't already know has a desire or a plan to write a book. By the time she gets to this point, she already knows. She probably already knows the title. She probably knows the topic. She probably knows if they started or they haven't started. She probably knows what their hesitations or fears are. Like, she knows why they want to write the book and what this is going to do for their business. So remember, you're not asking this to a cold lead that you don't know anything about. Those are the people that we work on the be known part. But as they're warming up and as they tell us things now, right, we can move them here. And a great way to do that, right, can also be in an event like this, right, where we're really getting to experience each other in this time together. But it's going to take practice. Yeah, it naturally flows from the stage relationship, right? And it's really just, I am, again, connecting what you told me with what I have and seeing if this makes sense to put these two things together. Okay? And again, this is just a template, so you make it your own. You make it what feels natural for you. You may have a different way that you want to say something, and that's totally fine. I just try to go, if I had to do the simplest way to do this, what would I say? Okay, but then you go, okay, and how do I respond? Well, if they say yes, you say, great, let's get you started. And I would, if you can, right then and there, get them right to the page, or you can do it for them in that moment, or whatever it is, right? Like, let's not let any time go by where they're going to get distracted or forget, or then start running into some fear and doubt and stuff like that. Like, what's the next step, and what's our timeline on taking that? Okay, so that's the ideal, right? Yes, okay, let's do this, right? Here's what we need to do right now. Okay, if they're not sure, and they're like, I don't know for sure, then I would ask a clarifying question. Okay, and again, from a place of curiosity, and just say, well, I'm just curious, or tell me, what would you say? What's the biggest thing holding you back right now? And maybe even give them some options. Like, is it time? Is it money? Is it clarity around what this is or how it'll help you? Something else, right? Like, get them to tell you, right, what that is. And maybe they say, like, it's the money, because that's a big one we hear, right? It's the money. I just don't know if I have the money. Okay, right? So then you can follow up with this question. So if the money weren't an issue, let's pretend like you already had that money in the bank, then would everything else feel ready and make sense to move forward? Right? And so what you can do then is then be like, okay, so for example, if somebody's looking at CEO Focus, I'm like, okay, it's $97 a month. Okay, hopefully that's a no-brainer price if you're in business. $97 to invest in your business is like nothing, right? But for some people, I get it. It's not. But then I go, okay, so what would you have to sell to have $97 a month to invest? And when I start talking that way, they're like, oh, that's only like I have to sell one of my things or two of my memberships, or, start getting them seeing the possibility of it, right? And talk them through, okay, how could we remove this obstacle? And then I always like to give a target timeline that we're working towards, right? It may be that once you kind of put it in that terms, she's like, oh, well, if you're going to help me make more sales and all I would have to do is sell one membership a month to pay for this, I guess, yeah, I could do it now, right? Like, I don't have to wait. Or they may be like, it may be that where they don't see that they can do it right now. And so there may be a time frame, or, what are we going to work towards? Let's touch back in 2 weeks. And this is what I'm going to work on. And this is what you're going to work on, right? So again, trying to find out what is the obstacle. And if that wasn't in the way, is there anything else? And then how could we get that out of the way? The husband. Okay. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We always have to go to the value, right? And here's where, Michelle, I think that you and I have been working on leading with your results building offer, right? So $97 a month. I mean, again, this is not like I have to go check my bank account and have a whole conversation with my husband, right, about this. This is like, hopefully, you've already communicated things that are valuable. You both have input on where money is going, and you're going to make the most of this investment. I think what often happens, Michelle, is it's that next level program that's now going to be the $497 a month or something that then feels like that. But here's the thing. You get her getting results in your $97 a month one. Then when it's time for her to level up, her husband's like, yes, all day long. Please do that because I've seen changes in you. I've seen the difference. I've seen, so yes, if you are offering something that's a much higher price point, there may need to be some time, but then I think you can have that conversation around, okay, you want to have a conversation with your husband or you need to check with your bank or whatever it is, right? And then when can we come back then to revisit this conversation after you've had a conversation and set that time while you're having the conversation? So then it doesn't feel awkward like, well, should I reach back out? Should I not? I don't know. Am I bugging them? Right? So yeah. Okay. So when would you like to revisit this? Right? Would be a great question. If they're like, not now, right? Then, okay. Then when would you like to revisit it? Another question could be, what would need to change for this to become a yes? Right? Because maybe it is that maybe they're in another program right now and they're just like, all they can see is what they have to do to get their investment out of that. And then they're open. Right? Or maybe right now they've got an extra payment going on for something and it's like everything is going towards that, and once their kid finishes this, whatever this thing is, then they've got some funds freed up or, so there's always different reasons. But again, if we're asking for when might be a good time to revisit it, then all we're going to do is follow up just like we said we would. That's not being pushy. That's not being weird. It would be weird not to, right? If you tell me, hey, let's revisit this in a month. Okay. I will put that in my Hello Let's Go system and you will hear from me in a month. And guess what? We'll have this conversation. Is this still important to you? Does this make sense to work together? Is now a better time? And let's kind of see where you're at. If they just say flat out no, again, totally fine. But maybe you can share something like this. I remember you shared, right? And then whatever that pain or desire was earlier, is that still a priority for you? Maybe something shifted and actually, so Carolyn's a book person. Maybe they're like, yes, I wanted to write a book when we first met, but you know what? Right now, God's got me on the plan of doing retreats. Okay, right? Or, I don't know, whatever. There could be where something has totally changed and I just actually don't have a desire or that problem suddenly cleared up and I no longer need to be seeing somebody about that or whatever. Like there's so many reasons, right? Bless and release. Bless and release, right? And yes, they can still stay in your world, right? And you can still keep loving on them and, and then who knows? Sometimes it's just a matter of time. Sometimes there is something that needs to happen or whatever. Okay? So just kind of thinking through, right? Where's this going to go? Okay. Now, again, what we don't want to do is say like, I can explain it more if you want, right? But that's why I love the question. Does it make sense to move forward? Does it make sense? That's a really very easy question to ask, right? And that doesn't feel pushy. Okay. And you're basing it on what they've already told you. Okay. So now that you know what to say, okay, before we do that, scale of 1 to 10, how much more confident do you think you feel now in being able to have a define the relationship conversation about actually making the invitation or the offer, whatever you want to call it, no matter what the price point is. So a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is like, I'm still over here on the sidelines. Like, I don't want to say anything, to 10 being like, all right, like no fears at all. Okay. Some 7s, 10. Good. Yeah. Bless and release. It's okay. Right. The more we try to control it, the worse it's going to be. Right. Okay, good. So I'm seeing a lot of higher numbers there. Okay, and again, we may never feel like a perfect 10. Okay, and that's okay. We always have a little fear, a little growth, a little uncertainty, right? So now that you know what to say, let's talk about how to actually have the be the one conversation. Here's the thing. It does not have to be complicated. Okay? Keep it simple, sister. We've been talking about that all week. Anything works. A phone call, a Zoom, a voice note, even a DM or a text. Here's what I will say. The more personal and in real time you can do this, the better. Okay? The more personal and in real time so that it's not like, oh, I left this voice text for her, but then, she was busy doing XYZ. And so it was 3 days later that I heard from her. Sometimes that happens and that's okay, right? But is there a way that we can literally just be like, hey, pick up the phone. Worst case scenario, they don't answer. Right? I mean, it's okay. We don't have to text somebody first. We could actually just call them. And what I do is I just leave a quick voice message, not with that question, and just hey, I had a quick question I want to run by you. When's a good time to call you back? And then I'll usually send them a text also and say, hey, I just left you a quick voicemail. I've got a question for you. When's a better time for you? Don't ask the question on the voice message, right? But you could also do it in a voice text or something like that if you want to do it that way, right? And you're going to kind of base it on that person. How have you been connecting with them? How ready do you think they are? Do you think they're going to have some more questions or things you need to talk through versus it's just more logistics, right? The key is clarity and presence, not perfection. right? We're not pressuring anybody. We're just inviting them to this discernment based, is this a mutual yes or no? And what's the timing, around this? And what's the need, desire, want, right? And how do we then move this forward? Okay. Here's what I want you to see about your time in this phase. Most business owners think the time invested is just the hours you spend talking to people, but in reality, it's the time that you spend identifying if there's clarity or alignment and readiness with somebody, right? So if you've been having all these conversations, if you're doing all this visibility stuff and be seen, right, and you're not actually having these conversations, you've wasted that time. Even if you're doing that and you bring them in and you're doing the touch points in the be known, but you're not having these conversations, you've wasted all this time. Right? Because we're never getting to a result. We're never getting to the roadie to see if there's even like some kind of result coming from this, right? And if you keep just hanging out in these two phases, then we're just continuing to pour more time, money, energy into something that we don't even know is ever going to pay off, right? And we don't want to spend or waste time nurturing someone who isn't ready to keep explaining or hoping or chasing, right? Because then our roadie is going to drop, right? So is our confidence, right? And remember, roadie isn't just about speed. It's about our intention and our outcome, right? I can't control the outcome, but I control what I put in and the wisdom that I use in where I'm investing that, so that it's leading towards those mutual yeses, right? And when you ask a discerning question like, does it make sense to get started working together in this way? Like, we get clarity immediately. It's either yes, no, or not yet, right? And then we can decide, okay, then where do we need to go next based on what you just told me? Right? And now we're going to actually start moving things forward in a way that is not us chasing people. Does that sound like a much better way to start bringing people into your world, right? Than just buy my stuff or hoping they click on the button in your email. And again, you're still going to do the automation stuff. I'm not saying don't send the emails. I'm not saying don't do the, the post or the live or the podcast episode or whatever. Like, we still do those things, and there will be unicorns who will buy straight from that and never have a conversation with you, right? And that's great. Like, yeah. And then we're still going to have to do the get to know you part then after they come in, because we need to know where they are, what they need, what they want, and how we can help them. Right. But most people are going to need, right, us to know that stuff up front before we actually offer this to them. Right. So here is where, right, like, let's do this, and let's do this together, because I know we can get in our heads. Right. And we can see, okay, I put all this time into one of these phases, Lissa, and it's not really going anywhere. Okay, well, let's look at it. Right. And this is why I love bringing people into CEO Focus. So before I developed the growth mapping method that we use inside CEO Focus, I was constantly spinning my wheels in every area of my business, like especially with leads. So let me just focus on leads. Like, I'd have visibility. You heard me. I was doing 10 to 12 posts a day at one point, right? I'd have conversations. I'd follow up with people. I'd nurture them. And I would hope that somebody would finally say yes, sending out all the emails all the time. But it always felt like I was either chasing or over explaining or just like waiting forever and then a lot of time would pass, and then reaching it back out feels awkward, or I didn't know if it was the right time to ask. And, opportunities are slipping away, and my confidence was slipping away. And so were my results. When I was like, okay, I need to get some focus here. I need a step-by-step way to move from this is where I am with X number of clients to this is where I want to be. Now I can be discerning about where my time goes. Now I can focus in the right ways of my time in my business in a way that is going to move the needle, right? And what I found is that not only has it moved the needle, but it's actually been more exponentially moving the needle than what I had expected, because I was really watching how I was doing it. So let me see if I can share this with you guys, because sometimes it's easier to see it visually. Okay. If you're like, okay, what is this about? We got to move all of our heads out of the way so I can see you and me and stuff like that. Okay, so I've been talking about CEO Focus all week. I've been talking about the growth mapping method. So I want to kind of visually give you a picture of this. And for those of you who are already in the program, I think it's always good to go back and go, okay, these are the 3 parts of it. How am I maximizing each part of it, right? So for those of you who aren't in here, here's what the growth mapping key 3 is about. Number 1, we pick a one thing focus. Right? We're not chasing all the trends. We're not chasing all the shiny squirrels. We're not just doing things to check boxes and feel good about ourselves. We are getting clear on what is one thing that is going to move the needle in my business. It could be one goal, one project, one area that you want to focus on for visibility or something like that. What's one thing? Okay. Once we identify that one thing, we go, okay, where do I want to be 12 weeks from now? Not 12 months from now. People set annual goals, and those are great, but we all know that most of the time we lose steam somewhere along the way. Right? We get busy and distracted. So I go 12 weeks. right? It's kind of like a sprint, but it's a focused sprint. So it doesn't have to be a super fast paced sprint because I'm not trying to shove a whole bunch of things into the same time block, right? And we go, okay, where am I right now? Say, for example, you have currently 2 clients. Maybe you're like a done for you services, right? And you've got 2 full service people that you're doing and you want to get to 10. Okay. So let's start mapping out. And I have a whole process that I walk you through that I developed called the growth mapping, method, where we're going to get all those moving parts and all the steps that you need to do in place, in order, with timelines that are doable, so that all I'm doing is following the plan. If it's week 1, I'm focusing on this. If it's week 5, I'm focusing on this. If it's week 8, I'm focusing on this. And I know if I do my part, I am moving things towards that goal. Can I guarantee the outcome? No, but much better than just, putting up the goal and hoping I end there. And then we have the weekly accountability, right? This is the support that keeps us on track. This is what we lean into. And we have two versions of this. One of them is a weekly accountability meeting where we start Mondays together talking about not only what does scripture tell us, but also what week of my plan am I on? How did my time go last week? And what did I learn from that? What challenges did I experience or wins did I have? What am I focusing on this week and what what my plan is around, and what support do I need? What am I anticipating? What am I expecting, right? And we also have availability to do that inside of our private inner circle community. So you don't even have to be on live, but there's something that happens when you're in the room. And those of you who do come to those, I'm sure you can attest to what we get done in there, right? And then you've got people like me, and my success intern is on today, Donita, and we are reaching out to you on a consistent basis to be like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, what are you needing? Hey, what milestone did you just hit? Hey, what's challenging right now? Hey, do you need support? Where do you need this? We are not, my mantra is no CEO left behind. I can't want it for you. Neither can Donita more than you want it. But we are guaranteed going to do everything on our part to help keep you moving towards what you said mattered, right? It's just the same thing we did in that conversation. If you tell me this is what matters and this is what I want, then I'm going to remind you of this is what you said mattered and this is what you want. Now, sometimes that changes in the process, and that's okay. We together figure out how to adapt and adjust your plan, because sometimes life happens, and yeah, we thought this is where it was going, and it totally takes a left turn, or a new opportunity came up that we didn't anticipate, and so we've got to make space for it, right? But yeah, we're still moving in the direction of what it is that you shared that God has called you to. Okay, so a couple other things that I'm going to show you real fast, because I've been kind of mentioning these throughout the week as well, are some of the extra bonuses that I throw in on top of that. We do business growth strategy sessions every single month, where we are pausing from just checking boxes and looking at our growth. And I walk you through the 4 phases of business growth, and we identify which phase you're in. We're actually doing one next week, right? What phase are you in? What are your priorities in this phase, right? Because we can say, I want to grow to this next phase, right? How many of us say, I want to scale my business. I want to, make 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever the thing is, right? However you want to measure it, right? But we're not focusing on what I have to do now in order to build to that. Right? So yes, we want to get the vision of where we want to go and what that's going to look like. But now, in light of that, where am I now? And what am I working on so that I can move to that next phase, right? So those are super, super helpful. We have a CEO Edge book club every other Thursday. We are talking through a biblically based book that is growing our faith, our leadership, our business. It's not like, I wouldn't say practical business skills, it's life skills. It's things that are helping us to think and be different, and to have wisdom and discernment. We're doing Do the Thing. We just had a book club this morning by Rebecca George. And yeah, how do we do the thing when God says to do the thing? So that's really, really a great resource. And then we do monthly networking. So again, this is not a pitch fest where you are a bunch of people in the room that you don't even really want to connect with afterwards. You're walking away with connections and opportunities to do collaborations and things like that. I will also say that we also have the free Redeem Her Time community, where you guys can come in and ask collaborative questions all day long, right? You're looking to collaborate with somebody, you're looking to do an email swap, you're looking for a podcast guest or to be a podcast guest, you're looking for summits to be a part of, you're looking for whatever, you can come into the community and do that. And then when you're in one of my programs like CEO Focus, we have a private inner circle where we get to even more do a lot of connecting, collaborating, and coaching and stuff that goes in there. And like I shared with you earlier, when you join us by next Tuesday, we're going to do the Be Mine implementation session. We're going to walk a little bit slower and have a whole lot more of you talking about your business and how this applies right where you are, so that you can start seeing the results. Okay, I don't just want this to be great information. Lissa talked about this, and I really wish I could actually get people saying yes to me. Let's do what we have to do to get people saying yes to you. Okay, how amazing would that feel, right, if you did that? So I love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing that, Annette. And I love that Danielle's the one who popped in and said that, because yes, Danielle and I had that conversation too. Like, where she was like, I don't know that I can invest. And I'm like, okay, well, let's plant seeds of faith. And so we did. And we kind of even set a timeline and said, okay, let's circle back in this time frame. And the Lord provided before that time happened, right? And in a way that wasn't really expected and planned for. And it was like, okay, well, then I guess it's time, right? And yeah, so I think like sometimes we just had this conversation on our WHAM this week in our scripture. We were talking about Jeremiah was told to go and buy a field, and it didn't make sense because literally the city was being sieged. They're going to be taken off into exile. Don't even know if they're going to be living anymore, right? And he doesn't really have a why from the Lord. He just is told to do it, and he takes the step of obedient faith, and then he prays for understanding, right? And I just love that reminder that like so often God's like, take the step, watch me provide. Think about the children of Israel. It wasn't like the Red Sea parted and then they took the step in. They literally had to step into the river or the sea, I guess it was, right? And then the water parted, right? So again, this is between you and the Lord, but like I would say, like, let's look at how can we plant some seeds of faith, whether it's investing of time or investing, in a couple little ways to think about, like Annette, like what would make it possible, right? Let's go back to what we just talked about, right? So you're a great example. You and I are having a conversation and you're like, listen, I would love to, but, right, I don't have these finances. Then what I would say to you as Net is, okay, what would you need to do in your business to generate another $97 a month? And then you and I would kind of figure that out. Okay, well, this would be one more of these sessions, or this would be 2 of these, or whatever it is. And then, okay, how can we start doing that? Like, how can we, start putting that out there and put a timeline on it? So yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I know Lanisha is in a coaching program actually that I used to be in, right? And that was one of the examples I gave, not thinking about you, Lanisha, directly, but yeah, like, okay, right now, if you've told me, hey, Lissa, like right now I'm in this program, I've got this timeline and I only have this much bandwidth, right? But in the meantime, guess what? Lanisha and I are doing a one-on-one. Like we found a way for her and I to start working together, even if it's not like for the next 12 weeks or 12 months. So here's where, right? I took the time to get to know her. And you guys, Lanisha, you know how we met? She like downloaded something of mine. And I guess what? I sent her a message and she responded back. And guess what? We've had a lot of back and forths now, right? And we're doing podcast swaps and, all that kinds of things came because I just took the opportunity to ask that one qualifying question when she came into my world, right? And now we've had this conversation and are talking about what collaboration looks like, what working together looks like. That's how this happens, right? So, all right, let's recap what we covered today, and then I'll be here for any questions or things that anybody wants to get some feedback on as you're thinking about your Be the One invitation flow, okay? We talked about why your leads aren't converting, right? First of all, we have to have leads, so that means we got to do the visibility and give them an action step to take to get them into the be known phase, right? And then we have to be giving them touch points. But very often, the reason why they're not converting is because we're not asking a question. All right, we're just kind of leaving it up to chance or time or when they're going to tell us, this non-committal space, right? Again, this is frustrating. It's costing all of us a lot of time, money, energy, things like that. And it's not helping them get the result that they want, right? Or finding out what result they want, right? And then helping them to figure out the timing on that, okay? So then we said, okay, so moving conversations forward, it doesn't have to be about convincing. It's really about discerning. Right. And we talked about how do we ask this clear, intentional question, not all the conversation starters we shouldn't be doing. Right. But the things that are going to move to a mutual yes. Right. And then we talked about, OK, how do we actually make the Be the One invitation? And now you have a very simple framework that's going to guide you through those conversations. It doesn't feel salesy or pushy or weird because all you've done is mirrored back what they shared. You've named your offer simply. You've shown how these two can work together, right? And then you're asking, does it make sense for us to do this now, right? This is how we start having the conversation around yes, no, maybe so, right? And then figure out where we take this next. So when you ask the question and be known and get no response, okay, great question. Yes, number 1, don't tell yourself a story. Just because somebody doesn't answer does not mean they're not interested and they don't care. Okay, they very well could just be swimming in all kinds of stuff and they're just not noticing, and that's okay. So here's where, like, again, the way that I teach the Hello to Let's Go system, which is the way that I teach leads inside my bigger program, is that people are on about a twice a month rotation, right? So if I send you a message today, Danielle, and I don't hear from you, that's okay, because I will be circling back to you in about 2 weeks. And, I'm going to look at what I last sent to you and if you responded in that time or not. And if not, right, I'm going to make a decision about, okay, am I just just was thinking about you because I would love to hear what you have to, what your thoughts are on that. Just putting this conversation back at the top of your thread. Maybe she saw it and opened it. How many times have you seen a message, you've opened it, and you intend to respond to it, and then you don't? I love the fact that now you can mark a text as unread. Remember back in the day when you opened a text, you couldn't like mark it as unread like an email, and it was so frustrating. My husband would grab my phone. I'd be like, don't touch any of those because I haven't read them yet, and I want to make sure that I don't forget, right? Or you think, or how many of us have typed something out but we didn't hit send, right? And, or we thought we did and whatever. Okay, like life happens. So again, here's where, what I like to do is like ideally within 24 to 48 hours, if you're raising your hand about something in my world, you're hearing directly from me or someone on my team, right? And then I'm going to make sure that we for sure have a second touch that's coming within the next couple of weeks because I don't want too much time to go by, right? And then you're just going to go right into, so say for example, you bought the planner, right? And you didn't respond either of those first 2 times. So what I do is on my Hello to Let's Go board, those of you who've been in that training, you know what that looks like. On the left is where people come in. And so I'm going to keep you there for your first touch and your second touch. And then, I'm going to move you to the warmest place that you've come in. So if it was the planner, you're going to be in my planner column. And when it's the day that I'm reaching out to planner people, then when I open up, your card, I'm going to be able to see what was the last thing that I asked or shared or whatever. And some people you'll never hear from. And at some point, maybe you just kind of move them over into a I'm not quite sure what to do with you category, So we don't want to annoy people, right? But I think a lot more times than not, it's they raised their hand already. So they wanted something, right? And so we're just kind of getting curious around what that was. So hopefully that kind of answers that. And I would also look at your question. So like Danielle was one of the people who went into the community and shared her initial question. And what we did is we went in and we adapted a little bit to make it even simpler and even more clear what the question was so that she's not having to overthink it. So it could be what I'm asking, right? It could be what the way I'm asking it. It could be that I'm asking all the time and maybe I just need to give some value sometime. Hey, I know you opted in for this. I just dropped a new podcast episode about, XYZ. I thought this might be of value to you. Here you go. So it could be as simple as that, where I'm just offering some value. I'm not asking them of anything. So, yeah. And here's also, so some of us have had this conversation. What if they don't respond? Here's where I always say, if you can have more than just their email, it gives you other options of where you can try to connect with them. Because maybe they're the person that has 20,000 emails that are unread. The people that like have that red circle that makes you go, ugh, how do you even sleep at night? Like I like to get to inbox 0. That's what Lissa likes, right? So it like literally like makes my heart start like hurting for you if I see that you have so many hundreds or thousands of emails that are unread. But maybe that's that person, and so that email you sent is just buried in there somewhere. Is there a way you can find them on social and DM them? Did you ask for a phone number in your form? And if they gave it, then send them a text. People tell me all the time, oh my gosh, you sent me a personal text? You picked up the phone and called me? You made a video and you like were talking to me? Yeah, it takes like 30 seconds, right? Like it goes a long way. So yes, if you can, try and find another way to connect with them. Sometimes you can't, but yeah. Okay. All right. So what's your to-do? Okay. Down at the bottom, you see 3 check boxes. You're like, what's Lissa going to make me do today? Okay. This is your Be the One invitation plan. Okay. You've got a simple framework now to how to have this conversation and move it forward. Don't tell me you don't know what to say. I just told you what to say, and I even gave you some options based on what they say. Okay. But don't worry about what they say first. But who are 3 leads that you want to have a Be the One invitation to today in the next 24 hours? It may not be to buy your biggest program if it's 10 grand, right? It might be to buy your $100 something. It might even be just to come to your next workshop. Like maybe it's to something free. Maybe it's to your community. It doesn't have to be like, I'm asking you to, marry me and give me your firstborn child, right? Like it could just be really something small, but it's more than just a free next step, but it is some investment. So if it's not an investment of money, maybe it's an investment of time. Some of you I know are building memberships and communities and things like that. And so how do we have like an actual invitation directly to somebody and not hope they saw it in the email or hope they saw the post that invited them in, but actually like take something that we know from them in there. And if you're like, Lissa, I don't even have 3 people that I even feel like I could do that with, then I would say, okay, let's get curious. Why don't you have 3 people that you know enough about them, because you don't have to know a whole lot to be able to ask the question I just gave you. Then where do we need to go back to? Do we need to go back to the visibility because you're not even bringing in the best fit buyers? Or do we need to go into the be known section? Yeah. Okay, so you're not being seen yet, right? So again, this is where we go to that. What you maybe could do, Danielle, today, because I want you to take action today, is reach out to someone who you have worked with in the past. And maybe your invitation question is more around a referral than a direct ask for them to come in. Because you've got people who have already, so like they will speak highly of you and think of those things and stuff like that. So, yeah, so that might be a good thing for you. I know, Kathy, we've had some conversations going on in the chat about like, I'm stuck in the friend zone, or I'm not even to the friend zone. I'm stuck in the be known zone. They raised their hand, but now I'm not getting anything. Right. So I would go, okay, then maybe we're doing like, is there a way that maybe we're not ready to make an invitation or an offer, but maybe we're just like kind of more asking like a poll, like, hey, I'm taking a poll right now from everybody who grabbed this resource of these 3 things, which is your top priority, and see if they respond back to something like that. Like sometimes we just have to get creative and ask it in a different way, or do something, that's super, super simple. We just want proof of life. Like I'd rather ask them a super simple question and then have to ask a follow-up question than ask a question that's going to make them think too hard and then they don't. Right? Visibility for me because I just niched in. Yes, Lanisha. And I would also say you probably already do know nurses who need what you're doing. Right? So like, here's the thing. As we're building the big stuff that's like, the podcast or the social platform or the, all this stuff out here, that's great. And that's like the mass marketing part. But who do I already know who could benefit from what I'm doing? Right? Guaranteed there are some people already in your world who you've got some level of relationship with. You could be like, hey, I don't know if you know, but I literally just shifted into really just focusing in on this type of person. And maybe, Lanisha, you don't even have an offer yet, because I know you're working on some of those things in that other program you're doing. So maybe it's more where you're just getting some information from them. Like, of these 3 challenges, which one is your top one? As you're trying to figure out what are the most pain points. So maybe in your case, if you don't have an offer invitation, like something to actually put them in that they could actually start and pay you for, maybe it's more like, kind of learning a little bit more about what their pain points are and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyone else have questions? Yay, Carolyn's her second time in CEO Focus and stepping up to impact in March. Woohoo! Right? I love that. Yes. Good, good. You're welcome, Kathy. Glad you were here. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas, ahas, Rhodey, that you got from today or this week? I would love to hear in the chat or unmute before we go. And I want some pushback. If you're like, yeah, Lissa, but I'm here for that. If you don't think this is going to work for you, I want you to ask. Let's see how we can. Anybody got something? You're like, no, I'm all good. This is great. I know who my 3 people are. I'm ready to go ask the question. Like, let's do this.
So how often do you, and this is a separate, this is an actual, someone I talked with said that they needed bookkeeping services. It's a nonprofit, really needed help, felt overwhelmed, has some family dynamic, children who require a lot of her investment. And so we weren't able to connect and move forward. I followed up initially, like right after the contact. And then I followed up, I did when we were talking earlier, another follow-up, hey, just checking in, how are things, how is your bookkeeping going? Are you still looking for someone? And I haven't heard any response from either of the 2 follow-ups that I've done. Do I go back and ask again? How many times do you keep following up? Understanding she does have some family dynamics that require her attention. So it's not always a good time for her, but what's the border between like being obnoxious and just trying to be helpful?
Well, first of all, Danielle cannot be obnoxious. So let's just be honest here. I know you will side on the side of not than are. So I don't think you need to be worried about that. Okay. I would say like if we could rewind things, which we can't, right? But think about this in the next time you're in this situation. When you're on that conversation where she told you, I need services, but I can't right now because of XYZ. Right then and there, your next question is, when would you like me to follow up with you such that I don't drop the ball and you don't feel pushed?
I did that. And then I did that follow up.
Okay.
But you did not respond to that follow up. Okay. And then I followed up again, like,
Perfect.
months later,
Sure. Okay.
still didn't respond.
Okay. So I think what you can do, yeah, I mean, you're 4 or 5 months later is not being obnoxious, first of all. I actually think that's probably too much time in between, honestly. Number one, I, if they have said, yes, I want this, and, and I've given you permission to follow up with me, then I don't think you're ever going to do what you could do. What you may want to do is just say, maybe phrase it in a different way of just like, hey, I have an opening this month. Are you interested, or should I pass this on to someone else? That might get a response, right? And if she says, yes, I'm interested, let's do it. Great. Now, okay, what do we need to do? If she's like, you know what, I'm not ready right now, then you can ask the question. I remember you shared XYZ. When would be a good time to follow up such that, yeah, I don't drop the ball, but you don't feel pushed. And then when you follow up, hey, it's Danielle. Can you believe it's already been 2 months? You asked me to follow up at this point to see where things were at. Scale of 1 to 10, how ready. So, yeah, I think you're just kind of in a really polite way doing what you said you would. And until she says, please don't follow up with me again, I don't want this, she gave you permission to. So I would say you can lovingly do that. I would say at that point, probably no more than once a month, but I don't think you need to go 4 to 5 months because too much life happens in 4 to 5 months. And hopefully you're also maybe thinking about her at other times. So it's like, hey, I just created this resource and I thought of you. I wanted to send it to you. Hey, I'm doing this email challenge that might be helpful right now in the in-between time. Would you like me to add you? Think about some value add things you can do in between. So it's not every single time it feels like are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah. Is that helpful?
Thank you. Very, thank you.
Sure. And everybody's going to feel a little bit different as to how often and whatever. But again, I think if they gave permission and you're doing what kind of you said you would, then yeah. Anyone else? A question, a situation, a concern? This is what I'm excited about. I could actually see this working in this situation. We could role play. Okay, everybody who's still on live, do you have 3 names written down in front of you right now? If not, that's what I want you doing. I don't want to see your smiles. I want you looking down at your piece of paper. I want you writing down 3 names. Even if you didn't print out my thing, you can draw 3 little boxes on a piece of paper or a Post-it or a napkin. Are there 3 people that a pain point, a desire, and that they really need what you have to offer, that you can then reach out and have a conversation. If you can't come up with 3 people, then okay, then let's go back to phase 2. Who needs a touch point? Maybe we need to do some more work in there. If you don't even have people that are, at touch point places, then we got to go back to, okay, how am I investing time intentionally and consistently in the visibility part so that I do have people to get to know, so that I do have people to ask the question. Those of you in my world, I like to push you. I like to make you do things you don't want to do and think about things you don't want to think about, and we're going to do them now. So when you've got 3 names written down, I want you to drop a 3 in the chat, and that is your pass out of class. And then you can go reach out. And I want to hear in the community, come back in the community and be like, hey, here's what I sent, or here's, maybe it's just the fact that you did 3. Maybe you just did 1. Okay. Celebrate the 1. That's okay. Right. I tried to go 3 because my husband always says 1 is none and 2 is 1. So at least 2, right? But why not 3? If you're going to do 2, you might as well do 3. Yeah. Okay, we got some 3s. So you got some people. Okay. Now you have some verbiage. If you have, I'm not quite sure how to respond to this, drop that in the community. Hey, here's the response I get. Where do I take this from here? I'm always going to, number 1, ask, what do you think? Right? So maybe kind of give me a little bit, here's kind of what I'm thinking, right? Or that kind of thing. So yeah. And it's okay if you've only got 1. Yes, Lanisha, because like you said, you are just starting the thing that you're doing right now. So maybe you go focus on the be seen part and that visibility part, right? But I bet you know some people who are in your field because you've been doing this for a while. So yeah, even if they haven't heard your podcast yet, they know who you are. So, okay.
Can I share something, Lissa?
Yeah.
So the last couple weeks, my schedule has been very sparse. And I was so excited for your calls these last couple days because I've had nothing scheduled. And then I decided to do a 14% off on an hour session for tomorrow and Saturday. And my schedule tomorrow and Saturday are completely booked. And I know my thing is the education, which you and I have talked about before. And, for doing this for 25 years, it's just, it's amazing. But yesterday I had a new person come in, and it was really disheartening. And, and honestly, while I was working on her, if nobody knows, I do reflexology. So I was working on her feet, and my energy completely drained. It just completely drained. And so she had her eyes closed. And as I was working on her, I've been declaring Psalm 91 over me every day for many, many months. And so I was just asking for his protection. And when I got done, she came out here and I asked her, how are you doing? And she goes, I had such a hard time getting through that session. And I said, oh. And she says, I've been getting this done for 25 years. What you do is not reflexology. And she just was like downtrodden me. And just when she left, I just cried. And, and I felt beaten. I really did. And then I had a client who came in shortly after her. The first time I worked on him, he had shingles. And as I was working on him, his face started clearing up. And that's when I realized that when we are doing the Lord's work, we will get that opposition. And even though sometimes it's hard, but I realized that, yes, I need the money, but I didn't want that lady as my client. And so just to have that discernment is amazing. And so I wanted to share that. And yeah.
And I think that comes from knowing who is my best fit buyer, right? And like you said, having discernment. I would rather not have you and have whatever money you're going to pay me than have, this be draining my confidence and my energy and things like that. And those are hard decisions to make as CEOs, but they're very wise. And I love the fact that the Lord, like right in the heels of her, literally brought in, somebody who was exactly who you needed to serve, and that you were seeing the results right there in real time. And then look at the results of just going from an empty calendar to, I just filled up my spots, in this one simple thing. And so I would get really curious about that, about a couple of things in that. Number one, how did this new guy find you? Right. And kind of laying into like, okay, how can I do more of whatever I did to bring him in, whether he was a referral, whether he found you on Facebook, whether it was an event, whatever.
He's actually a friend.
Okay.
But it wasn't anything that he's ever been interested in. So finally his wife had asked me a question, and I said, hey, why not try reflexology in the infrared sauna? And so he agreed to it, and he's actually coming back again tomorrow.
Yeah. And look at that. It was somebody you already knew, right? You were in the friend zone, but you never actually took the time to ask the question. But then when there was a need or a desire or a pain point, then you said, oh, wow, there might be like, this is what I offer. You just did exactly what we talked about today. Right. And so it's paid attention to keep our radar up for those things. Who are the people already in my world that do have a need or a pain point or something like that? And again, in what you do, people may not realize, oh, shingles is connected to reflexology. I mean, like, I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have thought, oh, I should go see Annette if I have this, So I think, kind of maybe doing some, and here's where, it's kind of educating, but also asking questions about what kind of things people are experiencing. And then you can show them how this comes together and stuff. And then for how you filled those spots, okay, 14% off is not a huge amount. So that was easy, right? So like how maybe next time can I not, maybe next time don't offer the discount, but offer an extra value on there or something and see how that works and just play with different things, right? And if you need to even raise your price a little bit to make the 14% off be what they would pay anyway, then, So maybe people just respond better to what you do because they think they're getting a discount. Okay, great. Then lean into that. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I just thought 14% because of Valentine's
Yeah, I think that's
Day.
great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And that's what I'm saying is like, okay, so that doesn't mean there's not a desire or a need, but the price point might be what's catching
Right.
them. So either what does that look like, to like, look at the price point, or how do I educate them in the value, or how do I add an extra so I don't have to discount my prices, but now they get something extra value, or like what you shared with me where you're going to give them a discount if they schedule their next one before they leave,
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to get 14% off again, but let's book it before you leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So love it. Good, good. All right, you guys, this has been fun. I hate to say goodbye, but it isn't goodbye. It's see you later. I'll see you in the community. Hopefully I'll see you inside CEO Focus. And if not, and now's not the time, then, reach out to me and be like, hey, this is what I want to do and work on. Is there a way we can do something smaller right now? Or here's my timeline. Please reach out to me, here. So that way we can have that conversation. So yeah. All right. Thanks for being here, you guys.
Thank you, Lissa.
Yep. Bye-bye.